Hurricane season is from June 1st to November 30th every year. 2017 has been a particularly challenging year for anyone who has been living near the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. Personally, I've always been a great planner with being prepared before, during, but that after part of the hurricane, no power for me for 6 days. So I have a special guest today who is going to help us walk through what it takes to get through a hurricane with food safety and avoiding food waste in mind. Welcome to Sarah TV. It's hurricane season and we're having a hurricane party. I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Mollie. Mollie is a dietetic and nutrition student and she's going to be a future registered dietitian. Yay!
Hopefully.
Mollie and I have a few things in common. Obviously our passion for nutrition, but also we both live in Florida. We're both raising families in St. Petersburg, Florida. We were both not raised as children in Florida. But we're raising our families, and so we've both been through some hurricanes. This year has been the worst. I've had neighbors who have lived here for almost 50 years, and this is the worst for them as well. So it's been a bad year, we get that. We have something not in common when it came to this hurricane season,
right.
or sorry, this hurricane. I stayed in my home with my family. You evacuated.
Yes.
And so I'll share what I did before because we had about 4 or 5 days, almost a week notice before this hurricane, which added to the stress. Kids were out of school. It was just not fun. But we had time to plan.
We did.
So since I knew we were staying, because I had my parents, my in-laws, and my family here, I went shopping in my freezer first, knowing that we already know to get bread and peanut butter and bottled water. We get that at the store. Those things were starting to be purchased in excess and not available. So I looked at my freezer. Okay, I have a roast, I have seafood. I was looking for those proteins that, you know, can cost money, and I didn't want to throw those out. So that's what we ate the first few days, well, 5 days, and then going backwards down towards the countdown of the hurricane. But why don't you share what you did when you evacuated?
Sure. So I started planning on the Monday before the storm hit on Sunday. We ended up evacuating Wednesday or Thursday. And we did the same thing. We went to the store and we bought the things you were supposed to buy because we weren't sure that we were going to evacuate. But we ended up evacuating, and one of the things we did is we offered those foods and water that we purchased to neighbors that might not have had it. So we offered that up. The second thing that we did before we left is I froze a cup of water in my freezer, and once it was frozen, I placed a quarter on top of that cup of water.
Genius.
So that I knew when I came back, if that quarter had sunk into the ice, then my freezer had lost power,
right.
And that food in the freezer was probably no longer safe to eat.
Right, that's so cool. Yeah.
Thankfully, we came back and the quarter was still laying on top of the ice, so our refrigerator and freezer were still safe.
That's
but
awesome.
I know not everybody had that same experience.
Right. So here's the thing. It's hit or miss who loses power and who doesn't. Even in our county, my parents lived 3 miles away. They stayed with us during the storm. We lost power, and I'll share about that situation. But when you're going during the storm, the words that really get to you, I get chills again, right? Every time. When you get the announcement that 911 is not available, you need, what is the word again?
You shelter in place.
Okay, shelter in place. You are not allowed to go outside. You're basically in curfew wherever you are. So at that point, in my mind, okay, this is it. The winds start picking up. You know, the eye of the storm hit us in the middle of the night, and that's when our power went out. But even that afternoon, we know that other pockets of the city were losing power. So when that moment comes, you have to be prepared for power outage at any point. So I put a curfew on our refrigerator doors and told my kids, don't, every time you open it and close it, you lose temperature that way. So that was something in mind. So we made it through, and then the next morning, obviously we woke up to power. And here's the kicker. Everyone assumes, oh, okay, the power will come on, the guys will fix it in a minute, okay. If someone had told me, Sarah, it's going to be another 6 days without power, I don't know, I'm glad no one told me that, because you kind of have to go day by day, and we'll share what we did. But you have to have a little bit of a plan, and we're going to show you how we got back on track to normalcy, because there is a new normal.
Yes.
And we made it through. And the whole point of this is we didn't throw a lot of food out, and I know so many people who threw food out. So eventually the power comes on. It's a very emotional experience because when it goes out, we have no idea when it's coming on. Our houses were designed to use electricity, and when we don't have it, we kind of panic. But once it comes back on, there are a few safety steps that all of us have in common that we should be doing before we start eating foods in our homes. What should we be doing first, Molly?
Well, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you've addressed any issues of debris in your house or
Right.
floodwaters in your house.
Right.
And then you can start to regroup and clean out other things.
Okay, so what about the drinking water?
So drinking water, you want to know that drinking water is safe before you either start to drink it or start to use it for cleaning. So you want to stay connected with your city, either through a radio or even your cell phones if you can keep them charged up, to make sure that your drinking water is safe.
Right, and I will say that our community was really awesome about that. We felt we were able to brush our teeth even though we didn't have power, right? And we had cold water, which was fine. It was hot, so we didn't complain about that. So once we know that the water is safe, and so that means we can clean our refrigerators because we know that, hey, what happens when our refrigerators are closed for multiple days? What's the M word? The
mold.
Yeah, a lot of mold. And I had it too. It's very humbling to see how clean you have your refrigerator once it's been out of power for multiple days. So why don't we take a peek in here?
Sure.
Okay. And so with the refrigerator, what has to happen?
So you want to be cognizant of the fact that your temperatures in your refrigerator have probably been above safe temperatures, safe consumption temperatures. And if you have any food, we've tried really hard to eat all the food that we had, so we didn't have a lot of food waste. But there's still going to be foods that you have not been able to consume in that period of time. So if they have been above 41 degrees for more than 4 hours, you probably want to throw them away.
4 hours, not 4 days.
4 hours.
Right.
So you want to start taking stuff out, even if it looks fine. I know you saved some things from when you had the storm. And so this is grape jelly, and it looks fine, it smells fine.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with it to the sight or the smell, but it's still not safe to eat. We still shouldn't eat it. These are pickles. They've been in here, they look fine, smell fine, but they're still not safe to eat.
That's right.
So we need to go ahead and throw those things away.
Yep. So, and that's what's painful is when people would say I had to throw out my entire refrigerator freezer. It's like, yikes.
That's why we work hard ahead of time to try and eat what we have.
Exactly. So what about the cleaning part of the refrigerator?
So the cleaning part of the refrigerator, we want to take out all of the shelves and all of the drawers. And if you still have ice, you want to be able to put what you have that's in the refrigerator that is safe to eat on ice, so that you have that available.
Right.
And so then when you take out all the drawers and all the shelving, you want to go ahead and wipe them down with a disinfecting spray or a disinfecting cloth.
Yeah. These came in so handy.
I'm so glad. With a 2-year-old, I'm so glad that they make these things.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then the next thing you want to do is you remember that we filled our bathtubs with water. We have all this water that we haven't used because our water was always safe to drink. So we don't want to waste that water. We want to disinfect using that water. So you can take the measurements of your bathtub and find out the volume of your bathtub and find out how many gallons of water are in your bathtub. And then from there, you want to decide how much bleach to add to your bathtub, and this is in a handout that you can also download with this discussion. And decide how much bleach to add to that water, and then you're going to put your shelves and your drawers in that water and soak them for at least 2 minutes, but you can go longer if you would like, to make sure that you've disinfected them and especially disinfected the mold.
I did this not because I was smart, but because I was lazy and just didn't want to hand wash everything in the sink because these things are huge.
They're cumbersome.
They're overwhelming, and you have so many. And so I just threw them in the bathtub with the bleach, and it was really quite handy because then you could wipe out everything else. Even the racks would have mold in it. It's crazy where mold shows up in a quick amount of time. So that was very handy for sure.
Okay, so we have just finished cleaning out our refrigerator and our freezer and our pantry, and we have sanitized everything, and now it's time to put food back in the refrigerator. So we've made our list of what we need to restock, and now it's time to put food back in the refrigerator. So when we do that, we have to wait until the refrigerator is cold enough to safely store food in the refrigerator. And one of the things that's going to tell us that is the thermometer that we've put in there before the storm to tell us what the temperature was when the power was out. But now it's helpful because it tells us the temperature of the refrigerator now that the power has been restored. So we don't want to start storing perishable goods in the refrigerator until it's reached 41 degrees. Now, every refrigerator is different. So for a lot of refrigerators, they cool faster if you have food in the refrigerator. But you don't want to put food in the refrigerator. Now we want to put things like bottled water and even bowls of water, jugs of water, that we have left over in the refrigerator to help that refrigerator cool down faster.
So, and I know some refrigerators have, this is actually, a dinosaur refrigerator. It does not have a digital thermometer, but most do. So my other refrigerator does, and that was great. What I noticed because I have a separate refrigerator, they were both not chilled at the same time. Mm-hmm. One took longer than the other. So if you have an older refrigerator, treat yourself to a thermometer so you know what temperature it is, and you feel more confident.
Yes.
Is it ready to be stocked again?
Well, and this is where those cooler devices still come in handy because you can store food in there until your refrigerator is ready. So now we would do the same thing in the freezer. And what I love about this freezer is there's not much in it because we have been really good about eating what we had and eating things that were in the refrigerator. And freezer. So now we have restocked, we've also cleaned the freezer the same way we clean the refrigerator, and we're restocking this with some of the bottled water that we had before. This is helpful because if we're still in hurricane season, then we have readily accessible ice should another storm hit again. And it's also going to help keep that fridge or the freezer cool the same way that the refrigerator was.
Yeah, I think that's a huge take-home for a lot of people is not to, you want to keep your your freezer stocked because if it is fully stocked, you have 48 hours.
48 hours.
If the power goes out. If it's half stocked, then you only have 24. Right? Mm-hmm. So why not fill it with things that if it will stay in there for a couple days, like rice, bread, your flours, and water. I'm going to do that every year now because it just pains me to hear how much food people waste.
Well, and this is one of the easy ways to store ice in your freezer if you don't have bottles of water. So we have filled a bag, just a typical Ziploc bag with water. And so frozen it in the freezer ahead of the storm so that we had ice, and should it thaw, we had additional safe drinking water. And then Okay, so we have just finished cleaning out our refrigerator and freezer and pantry, and then we got them all ready for restocking. So our refrigerator's at the proper temperature and our freezer's at the proper temperature, and now we have to get prepared to restock what was in there before. So we make a list and we go ahead and replace things as we're able. So when you think about restocking things, you want to make sure that you're not restocking things that you might not use immediately because we're still in hurricane season.
Still in hurricane season. That fear is there. I'm afraid to lose power again, so we want to be kind of conservative about what we stock, right?
Exactly. So at this point, you could go ahead and restock your freezer with maybe half water and half of the normal things you might stock in your freezer, but you don't want to go ahead and make a stockpile in your freezer because you don't want to lose that again.
Of course not.
No. So once we've made that list and we've prepared that list, then go out and purchase items. But also, it can be really hard on a family when they might have lost a lot of food during a power outage.
There are a lot of resources, and Mollie was able to find more than I was even aware of. So what did you find for resources for hurricanes?
So there are some disaster relief resources for food through USDA. Also, it's called Disaster SNAP. So that's the supplemental nutrition program through USDA, but it's available for everybody during times of disaster, after disaster. And then also through WIC. A lot of the restrictions on what you can purchase through WIC are sort of more flexible as a disaster happens, so that those people have the ability to buy what's available. Because we know we go back to the grocery store, and what we might typically buy isn't there. So we have to buy a substitute because they're slowly restocking just the way that we're slowly restocking.
It really took almost a month for stores to get back to normal, which was kind of scary and freaky, but it was because the semis couldn't get through to where they needed to be. So there was a longer period of time, even though our refrigerator was ready. We had to kind of deal with what was available out there.
As the supply comes in, then you have to deal with it.
For sure.
So then when you think about restocking your hurricane kit after the season is over. So November 30th, the season is over, and all of a sudden you have all this food in your emergency supply kit, and what are you going to do with it? Some of that food might expire before the next hurricane season, so you want to go ahead and either incorporate that food into your everyday meals so you're not wasting it, or if you know you're not going to use it before the next hurricane season, go ahead and donate it to someone who might be able to use it.
So May 1st is when we're going to start looking at our supply kit again and be very well prepared for next season. I know once, the weather is nice in the winter, and then we're thinking, okay, life is good, but it might happen again. We don't know.
Right.
So these are some great tips, and we also have a tip sheet on the website.
Correct.
Which will have all of this information, so you don't have to make notes right now.
Yep.
So thanks, Molly, for all this research, and anything else you want to add?
I think that's just about it.
Okay. Stay safe, people. Thank you.
Thanks.